The first tree fell to the ground. His limbs were cut, and he was dragged down the mountain. He was delighted when the woodcutter delivered him to a carpenter's shop.
But this man did not make treasure chests. No order from a king was waiting. However, a young man opening a new inn needed a piece for his stable. So the carpenter's calloused hands quickly fashioned the tree into a simple wooden box, a rough feed trough for animals. Sawdust clung to his sides, not gold. He was sent to live among animals, not kings, and he was filled with hay.
Again the woodcutters climbed the mountain.
Our orders from the boatyard today. We need a tree that's strong, stout, and sturdy. This one looks good to me.
He raised his axe and set to work. Soon the second tree toppled. He too was happy, yearning for the adventure he was sure would follow.
Before long, I shall be the greatest, most magnificent ship in the world. My hull will dance upon the sea. I'll slice through waves and ride upon the wind.
When the second tree arrived at the shipyard, his ecstatic heart raced, for soon he would sail the sea. But this yard did not make great sailing vessels. No, this yard built small, common working boats for the fishermen of Galilee. The tree was cut cleanly into planks and hammered into an insignificant fishing boat, then sent out to work the lake.
Look at me. I'm not strong enough to sail the sea or even brave a river. Instead, I find myself here on the lake, spending my days filled with the rank smell of dead fish, rather than washed in the salt and wind.
And every day as he toiled and strained, the rustling laughter of old trees seemed to echo across the lake.
I guess the old tree was right.
The third tree, meanwhile, continued to grow. His trunk grew straight and tall, his branches dense with glossy leaves.
But just as his top began to rise above the other trees around him, just as he began to achieve his heart's desire, the cutters returned and chose him. The third tree boldly tried to stand, but the axes struck blow after blow. His dream crashed loudly with him to the forest floor. Then he was dragged to a lumber yard and cut into beams. Disheartened and sad, he barely noticed as he was stacked with other beams and left to dry.
Even as the third tree fell, the first tree learned to accept his life. Though he did not know grandeur, he eventually forgot his dream of jewels and gems, his wish for the wealth of kings.
My sides were now scratched and scarred by teeth and claw, and the days slipped away as I cared for the animals large and small that ate the straw I held for them. But late one silent night, as the animals slept and the stars shone, a baby was laid to sleep in the straw I held. And even later, when the small space was crowded with shepherds all gazing at the parents at the child, I knew that finally my dream had been fulfilled. My once clean white wood, now dull and dirty, at last held a true treasure.
The years passed as the second tree lived a hard life on the water.
My hull was scored and scratched from being dragged on the shore, heavy with the day's catch. My once pure planks, battered by storm and sun, were now stained, spotted, and steeped with the smell of fish. But I had served my fishermen well over the years. Then, one airless evening, a group of men borrowed me and took me out on the lake to cross to the other side. One man laid sleeping, while the others rowed. A sudden storm came up. Wild waves tossed me about. I rocked and dipped and rolled in the raging wind. Water rushed over my sides, and I began to sink. The men began to cry, to the one who was sleeping.
Master, help! Don't you care? Help us here! We're gonna drown!
Help!
The sleeping man woke and stood. He commanded the wind and waves to be still. When he did, the winds began to subside. The storm stilled, and I slowly settled. Then I knew I had fulfilled my dream. I had been a part of something grand. I will always remember at least this one great adventure, this moment of glory.
Still time passed, and the third tree lay alone and forgotten. A beam among many, waiting to be used, his fate uncertain.
My beams were still as smooth and straight as the day I was fresh cut, though I was worn now by time and weather. Finally one day I was hauled from the pile, cut in two, and fitted together. I was hoisted onto a strange man's back, then dragged by this man through the city. Crowds lined the streets, yelling and jeering at the man.